Hey there, welcome back. And if you're new here, hello, my name is Dara, and in this video you're going to learn how to make this classic white floral arrangement using local and seasonal ingredients. Let's begin. First up, you're going to need a vase and put 3/8 inch felt pads on the bottom to protect whatever surface you put it on. I always use my marble Lazy Susan to design on. And the first material I'm going in with is this galvanized chicken wire. I cut whatever length and width is appropriate for the size vase that I'm using, and then I stretch that material out so that I get the most out of that honeycomb shape that the chicken wire makes, and then I cut off the proper shape at the end of it to put it in the inside of the vase to catch the ends of the stems. This is a really important step for this style arrangement. Then I secure it over top with 1/4 inch Oasis floral tape using my Victorinox florist knife. Crisscross over top and then secure on the uppermost brim of the vase so that all of those mechanics are hidden. It's not on the lower outside of the vase. I put it as close to the lip of the vase possible, and then using my fingers, I just really secure that, because if you don't, water will get in and the whole thing will lift up. 1 scoop of Flora Life powder food, and then we're good to go. We put the water in. So first ingredient, I'm gonna start with prepping the aspidistra that I have here with also another type of Oasis floral tape. This kind is clear. This is clear Oasis floral tape. This is really good for this type of work. It's a lot more delicate than the other waterproof tape, so it doesn't rip foliage or flowers or whatever you're using it for. So really good for this type of work. I'm basically folding the leaf in half, and then right at where the tip of the leaf meets the top of that stem, I'm binding it together about 3 or 4 twists, and then I cut with my Victorinox florist knife. And I have 1 bunch, which is 10 stems here, and this is variegated aspidistra, of course. And then using my slightly moistened wet rag here, I go in and kind of wipe off any dirt that may be on there, anything that is just looking a little blemished, give it a nice clean wipe, and continue taping until we're all done with that. Then I set those aside. We'll go in with my first foliage, which is geranium. I love this geranium so much. It's not your standard chocolate geranium, which has a super zesty fragrance to it, though it is still fragrant. It has more of a scalloped edge. It's a little bit more round and slightly more sparse as well. There's more space between each piece of green and the stem that it's on. So it's not as bushy, it's not as big, not as round. And I thought that this would be a really good base to start this arrangement with, because setting it up the way that I am right now, you'll see later that those little outer pieces will kind of just float on top of the arrangement, and then the larger pieces on the inside of the stem are giving us a nice support structure to start holding all of our stems in place here. Then I go in with those pre-prepped aspidistra and peppering those around so that I'm starting to fill out a shape here. I sometimes like to put 2 of these side by side so that it creates a nice big block of color. And in my usual kind of triangle format, still not sure if how I'm explaining this makes sense to you, but generally speaking, I will envision a triangle shape 3 different ways around the arrangement. I'm gonna have to sketch this to make sense of it, but I'm sure you can see what I'm doing here. Basically putting a couple down at the bottom of the lip to round out the shape, and then at the top and at varying angles so that it does start to create a more rounded shape. And now we're going in with hyacinth. I got 1 bunch for this arrangement. I took 1 day for them to fully open out. They were almost entirely closed the day before. It takes about 1 day for them to fully open. So if you need to start your arrangement with open hyacinth, They'll need about a day to open, or you'll need to buy them open if you're designing that day. But just trust that they will open. Second flower in is stock, another really gorgeous, fragrant flower. It has a beautiful clove scent to it, and also a local ingredient. I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but all of the ingredients here that I'm using today are locally grown, California grown ingredients, which is lovely. I feel like it's nice to do a local arrangement. It's a little bit more cost effective and cost friendly, if you will, and then also you get a little bit more for your money, and it's all local, so you know that flowers weren't shipped. And if you're a little bit more conscious like that, that's a good thing to be aware of. So third element in is brasillia. This is gorgeous. I chose a bunch that had a little bit more of a creamy hue to it versus that deeper green, so that I could get kind of more in the realm of the lighter green color, so that it had some variation there. It also, as you'll see later, kind of matches really beautifully with the Hellebore that I used. And I prepped this ingredient before, but as you'll see, I'm using my Victorinox knife to just clean up those stems so that any nodes, any foliage, any spikes that are sticking out on that stem are completely cleaned off, and it slides nice and easy right into that arrangement. And if you need to change the position of it as well, it's also very easy for that to come out. So doing this step when you're designing with any flower, not just this brasillia here, is a good thing to do. Now, oh, precious white anemone. I love that they have this beautiful black button center. To me, it's such a classy, and what I think really ties this arrangement all together and allows it to be called a classy arrangement. I just think that it's just such a classy flower. With that little collar, the little green Renaissance collar, are you kidding me? He is so fancy. And I love that this bunch also had, like, if you saw that there, a little bit more green. Some of them were a little bit more crunchy, scalloped edges and slightly more closed. So you get some variation in texture. Some of them were huge, like this one was slightly more cream colored. So just loved that this bunch had some slight variation in color: cream, green, white, and then of course that gorgeous black center. We'll go in now with ranunculus, and I'm having to clean these up. I don't know what happened to these. It wasn't quite visible when I first purchased them, but they may have been cooler burned, or maybe something happened in the weather where they were growing and I just didn't notice it when I bought them. So just another heads up for when you're looking for flowers and you're shopping for flowers, to do a close inspection on every bunch that you buy. Check out the petals and check out the foliage. The foliage is always a very clear indicator as to whether that material is super fresh or not. You can always tell if the greens, the foliage are starting to turn more yellow, kind of a little bit yucky stems, looking a little mushy. Those are old. Unless you need them for that day event and it's not a gift arrangement, then I suggest to avoid that. So it just creates more work, and also, more importantly, a shorter lasting flower, which may not always be to your or your customer's benefit. So make sure, again, that you're always checking out your flowers when you're shopping. These flowers were still fine. As I cleaned them up, they looked great. Just cleaned off some of those damaged petals, and they were still absolutely stunning and super fresh, and I'm sure this arrangement held up really well. Ranunculus, I feel like, just another really sweet, classy flower. I kind of came to the conclusion as I was making this, I really think that an all-white arrangement is quite possibly my favorite. There's something about it that is just soothing, fresh, crisp, uplifting, clean, pure. It just feels so good to look at. And now I have these precious Hellebore. I'll have to make a how to process Hellebore video for you, but if you would like to know, I basically use my Victorinox florist knife, when I first get them in, split, like basically slice the stem, not entirely the way through, but give it a nice vertical strip right on that stem and put it into water so that it hydrates better. This is a flower that is a little bit complicated, and I really had to clean these up as well. There's often a lot of damaged flowers with Hellebores. I'm not sure why. I think like because they're such a dense or compact flower, they just tend to get a little bit more mushy in the growing process, so there is a little bit more cleaning up with these flowers. I take off the foliage as I do any of the other stems, and then strip off any laterals that I can use down lower so that I'm maximizing the amount of flowers that I get out of each stem. This isn't always possible for larger size arrangements, and depending on the size of the stem, of course, you'll just want to be aware of that. But if you strip off laterals, you get more out of it and you get more variation in your arrangement. This was also a super stunning, had variations of green, cream, white, very, very slight yellow to it, just super, super precious. With that stem there, I actually did split that stem entirely in half so that I could get, again, more bang for my buck, if you will, out of that stem. If I put the whole thing in the arrangement, the flowers would have looked crunched, and I didn't want that. You want every flower. I think this is the most challenging thing, which is also my favorite, and why I design this style arrangement so much, is because it's actually very challenging. It is extremely challenging to get each flower to be displayed as if it's its own star. And then gorgeous, this is called bombastic white. This is a type of spray rose, and white flowers in general are very much easy to bruise and damage. They show damage more easily, they bruise more easily, and so therefore it generally requires more cleanup. So even though I processed these the day before, I still am, as I'm designing this arrangement, taking off any of the petals that have any little blemishes, any little bumps where you can see brown edges, and just stripping that off. And sometimes you get down to an entirely different looking flower because of that, and that's totally okay. You just have to manipulate it a little bit more to make sure that it still looks gorgeous. I blow on the head of the rose to open it out a little bit, and then continue stripping off whatever doesn't look good. And placing those in wherever there's the most space. And I have explained this in other tutorials, but if you're new here, I basically, when I'm designing this style pave arrangement, there's not every flower is on the same exact surface level. There is a half an inch of space between each flower in depth, and one flower may sit just slightly above the other, but it kind of gives the illusion that it's all on the same surface level, if that makes sense. Which again is another one of my favorite parts about making these arrangements, because it takes a lot of fine detail tweaking to get it to look that way. If it were all on the same surface level, it would look a lot more scrunched. Not every flower would have its own specific stage light. I love when you can see every individual flower perfectly. You can see the entire face, and every single flower is on perfect display. Nothing is scrunched, smushed, or bunched. And to me, again, that is why I love designing this style arrangement. It's a challenge, but also if you do it well, and once you get the final result, it is the most satisfying, in my opinion. I mean, this is just my little kink over here. It is so satisfying to look at. It is satisfying to hold. And in a space, I think it is extremely impressive. There's a lot of weight to it. There's a lot of volume to it, and it just feels substantial. It feels like luxury. The reason I don't design these huge, like billowing wildflower arrangements for my offerings. Editorial and just personal preference for my home aside, for my offerings in my store, for my arrangements that I design as gift deliveries, I don't like to do these kind of like sparse, flowy arrangements because they don't impress me. If I were to receive that kind of arrangement, I would be like, what's the point? It doesn't feel luxurious, it doesn't feel substantial. And for a luxury product, which flowers are, and florists are, having access to a florist is a luxury, it just, to me, feels like having the weight and the volume is just the most opulent feeling. So that is my hot take on why I designed this style arrangement, and I really wish that you could see this in person. I think it's like super impressive. You have this on a coffee table, you have this on a dining room table, and the overall dimensions of the final arrangement were, I actually didn't measure it, but the vase itself was 6.5 inches wide. It's probably about a 14, I'm just gonna call it 16 inches cubed, because that's generally what this style arrangement comes out to be when it's done. The best way to care for this arrangement, and for all flowers really, is to change the water daily. Yes, it is a little bit of a chore, but you will get the most beautiful and longest lasting flowers when you make sure that that water is fresh, you keep it bacteria free. It just keeps the flowers lasting and feeling gorgeous. If you were a flower, you would want to have fresh water to drink too. I truly enjoyed making this arrangement. This incredible grass, I don't know the exact name of this. I'm gonna have to do a little Google search, but the name of it will be in the description box below, where you can find the entire recipe for this arrangement. So if you wish to create it yourself at home or in your studio, you can do that. This is actually growing in abundance right now around Los Angeles. Can't believe I bought this at market, but you know, sometimes you don't have the time to forage, but on my walks, I see it, and it's in abundance right now, and it's just spectacular. So what I'm doing with this is I'm grabbing about 6 or 7 stems and grouping it together so that it creates a nice clean tuft there. And this is kind of a tricky little maneuver, but you basically bring all of the heads together so that they're all nice and neat, the entire stem together, and then hold at the very base of the stem the entire bunch. And then you'll see I had to take that one out because it got messed up as I tried to insert it. They're extremely delicate, they break really easy. So you can see here I'm using my other hand to lead that down in, while my top hand is kind of gently pushing it down. So it's like a push-pull action there. Again, with another tuft. This to me was truly like the finishing touch here. Not the spray, but like basically the finishing accent. I think this element really rounded out the entire arrangement and gave it that kind of bucolic, classy bucolic daydream feeling. I wish I knew the name of this grass. It's really driving me nuts. I call it rabbit's foot grass because it is really soft and has a similar shape to a rabbit's foot. So I finish it with finishing touch. This is Flora Life Finishing Touch. It's a wax-based sealant, and give it a vigorous shake, and then you can't see it in the frame here, but I spray about 12 inches away from the arrangement, turning the arrangement as I spray so as to get a nice even coverage. This is the best. It keeps flowers super fresh and lasting a nice long time. Here's the finished look. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for joining me on this gorgeous floral journey today. I hope that you learned something new. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. I'm very excited to chat with you and answer any of your questions. And as always, All of the tools and materials that I used to design this arrangement can be purchased from my Amazon store at the description box below. And thank you so much for watching. I had a blast making this arrangement. I had a blast making this tutorial for you. And if you decide to make this arrangement yourself, I would love to see what you do. Tag me at FLORA LUX on Instagram or leave me a comment below. Send me a picture on Instagram. I want to see if you recreate it or use a similar style for your own arrangement. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more floral design education and entertainment. Thanks so much.